Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Lilies and Tomatoes. So if you missed the shenanigans earlier, I was talking to myself for 12 minutes because my camera disengaged, and we are now re-recording this video because it was requested, and we're talking about nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, fertilizers. What is it? What do each of the letters do? How does it come? What are the options? What are the synthetic organic options? All of that. If we have not met yet, my name is Quincy Adams, and I want to help you grow some of your own food in a small space on a budget. Let's get started. Okay, so first, NPK stands for, the N is for nitrogen, the P is for phosphorus, the K is for potassium. Nitrogen helps with proteins and leafy green tissues. Lack of nitrogen will make your plants turn yellow or a pale green. If there's too much nitrogen in your soil, or like if you give your plants too much nitrogen, then you're going to get a lot of like green leaves, but you're not going to get a good fruit set, or you're not going to get a lot of fruit or flowers. For the second letter is phosphorus, that helps with plant root growth, and it helps with flower set and fruit set. So a lack of phosphorus means that you're not going to get good flower set or fruit set. The K is for potassium. That is for overall plant health, and it helps the plants make the carbohydrates that they need. And not enough potassium leaves the plants stunted, so they will grow a little bit, but not very big. So the NPK numbers on a fertilizer, let's see, what's going to show the best on here. On your bag of fertilizer, you are going to see a set of numbers. Oh, right down here. Oh, right by my finger. See, this one says 1200. That means in this particular type of fertilizer, 12%, it's 12% nitrogen by weight. If you're getting another, like whatever kind of numbers it represents, if it's 555 or 10, it's going to be those percentages of fertilizer by weight. And if you're looking at reading the fertilizer, the instructions, it's going to tell you to apply like a cup or a pound, or it's going to give you a certain amount of weight per square feet, because that's it. The guaranteed analysis is by percent, it's percentage by weight in the bag of fertilizer. Okay, so a complete fertilizer is a fertilizer that has a value for all three numbers. That's the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen, potassium, and nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are the three most important nutrients for plants. They're the ones that the plants need the most of. They are not the only nutrients that your plants need. So there you will see other nutrients sold as fertilizers or supplements for your plants, but the NPK are the ones that your plants need the most of. So a complete fertilizer has all three. A balanced fertilizer has the same amount by weight of all three of the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So that's going to be like a 555 or 10. If you're not sure what your soil needs and you're growing in the ground or in a raised bed or just like straight in the ground, get a soil test. Soil tests are very important. It'll tell you, if you're just interested in NPK, you can get a soil test kit at like any garden center or big box store. If you want to know what other of the other nutrients that your soil is missing, then you want to pay for a soil test and send your soil away. Just Google soil test near me, and you will find the agricultural extension place that does soil tests closest to you. It should cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of $25 to $50. It is so worth the money, because if you are missing an essential element in your soil that's not NPK, it doesn't matter how much fertilizer you add to your plants. They're never going to do well. NPK are just the ones that your plants need the most of, not the only nutrients that your plants need. So there's a difference between an organic fertilizer and a synthetic fertilizer. Organic fertilizers, they tend to work slower because they are going to work with the other micronutrients present in your soil. So if you're going to rely on organic fertilizers, you're going to want to put your fertilizer out in the fall and let it do its thing and work with the micronutrients, because the micronutrients in your soil, there's microorganisms in your soil that either eat or excrete some of the other micronutrients in the soil. So it makes them plant available. So sometimes you could have something in your soil, there's plenty of it, but your plants can't use it because it's not in a plant available form. The microorganisms make sure that the micronutrients are plant available. So that is a benefit of using an organic fertilizer. So that's going to be like putting it down in the fall. That's going to be like using compost in the fall. That's why they recommend that you put down compost in the fall. It's not going to be really high in NPK, but it's going to have a lot of microorganisms in it that are going to unlock the micronutrients in your soil to make them plant available. You don't have to have a high NPK in order for your soil to be healthy enough to nourish your plants. If you're using organic fertilizer, you're going to end up a lot of times with something that's like a manure or bone meal, blood meal, those types of things. So something like this, blood meal, this is 12% nitrogen. And let's see, where did I give my other one? Oh, here it is. This is bone meal. This is 4% nitrogen and 12% phosphorus. So if you wanted to get the organic version that's just the potassium, then you want to get potash. So those are organic of the NPKs. There are also organic versions of other micronutrients that your plants could use. So this is a soil acidifier. This is sulfur. So this is sulfur that is plant available for a plant that likes acidic soil. This is lime. This is calcium, magnesium, and a bunch of other stuff. This is stuff for plants that like a more alkaline soil. So the pH of the soil also plays a factor. If the pH of your soil is not correct for the type of plants you're growing, then your plants are not going to be able to get the nutrients out of the soil that it needs, even if the nutrients are present in the soil. Now, if you want to use synthetic fertilizer, that's totally fine. Everyone gets to make their own decision on that. But synthetic fertilizers are chemical compounds that are the nutrients for your plants. So those are going to contain a lot of salt. So if you're relying heavily on synthetic NPK fertilizers, over time, all of that excess salt is going to build up in your soil. It's going to hurt the microorganisms that unlock the micronutrients, and it's going to end up in your groundwater, all the extra salts in the chemicals of the synthetic fertilizer. So over a long period of time, synthetic fertilizer is not good for your soil ecology or the local groundwater. But in the short term, it's going to give your plants an immediate boost because all of those chemicals are plant available. So that's the difference between an organic and a synthetic fertilizer. Now, sometimes you might come across some kind of fertilizer that's like micronutrients for your plants, and it's going to say something like non-polluting, non-toxic. That's because this is made out of inorganic materials. So it can't be labeled organic because it's made out of inorganic materials, but it's also not a synthetic made compound. So this is spray and grow micronutrients. I like to use this as much as possible. I like to keep my soil neutral and just spray the nutrients directly on the plants. It's as a foliar feed, but and that's just because I grow in containers. In a container, you're going to have a limited amount of microorganisms to do the work to unlock micronutrients, which is why I often give my plants worm castings, and I buy it because I don't have any worms yet, because this has a lot of micronutrients in it, even though it does not have a high NPK. It's also got hormones in it from the worms that make your plant grow. So that is a lot. I'm going to do a quick recap on some of these items, but just to go back to the beginning, NPK, N is nitrogen. It is protein for leafy green tissue. Too little nitrogen makes your plants yellow or light green. Too much nitrogen gives you all leaves and no fruit. The P is phosphorus. Phosphorus is good for root growth and for flower set and fruit set. So lack of phosphorus is going to give you poor flower set and poor fruit set. If you don't have good flowers, you're not going to get any fruit because the fruit is the pollinated flowers. Potassium is the K. It's good for overall health, and it makes sure that the plants can get the carbohydrates that they need. Not enough potassium is going to leave your plants small and stunted. So they're not going to grow very well if they don't have potassium. But potassium is typically the smallest number in a non-balanced fertilizer because there tends to be potassium in your soil already. Now, a complete fertilizer has all three values, an N, P, and a K. A balanced fertilizer has the same amount of the N, P, and K, and those numbers are percentage by weight in the actual fertilizer. If you want to know what your soil needs, get a soil test. I promise you it's worth the money. Get a soil test if you're growing in ground. If you're growing in containers, it's going to have limited value unless you filled every single one of your containers with the same exact soil mix, which is going to be really hard to replicate. Like, you can make it similar, but not exactly the same unless you're just opening the same kind of bag, putting them all in there, but I digress. Okay. Your plant needs a lot of other micronutrients besides just the NPK. The NPK are what your plant needs the most of. If you're using an organic fertilizer, this is not organic, but this actually has some of the stuff in here that organic does. So organic fertilizer is going to be slower to work, and it's going to work with the microorganisms in your soil to unlock the micronutrients in your soil. A synthetic fertilizer is going to work faster, but it's going to be derived of chemical versions of the nutrients, the NP and K nutrients. So it's going to have a lot of salt in it, and that salt can build up in your soil over time. And that excess salt from the chemicals is going to kill the microorganisms in your soil, and it can end up in your groundwater. And then here's just a couple things that you might see if you're looking for fertilizers or micronutrients for your soil. If you're not sure what your particular plant needs, because every plant needs something different, just Google it. So just Google what kind of soil does a tomato like, or Google what kind of soil does your broccoli like, and then it'll tell you, and it'll give you some general guidelines, and then you can add things to your soil from there. But if you're unsure of what your soil needs, one more time for the cheap seats, get a soil test. All right, you guys, that is all for tonight. Have a good night. Bye.